If there's one thing about retro games that really was going on up until the last generation, it is handheld game ports. Handheld gaming's been going on for such a very long time now, and for anyone who had a Game Boy growing up knows there were tons of games ported from consoles to the handheld. The Game Boy Color had a ton of ports, and a lot of good ones and definitely a lot of bad ones. It was great to experience a game that you really wanted to play that you owned at home and you could play it on the road, or if you didn't have the home console version and you wanted to check out that franchise on the go as well. The PlayStation 1 had a ton of games that were on the Game Boy Color, and I decided to go through the whole library and find some good gems here that were worth your time to check out and play. I'm not going to put Metal Gear Solid on the list, even though it's labeled as Metal Gear Solid on the Game Boy Color. It's technically a spin-off, which is called Ghost Babel, so really it doesn't count. These games on this list all have the same title as the PS1 games, but they kind of have an adaptation close to the original game in a way. Sit back, relax, let's talk about these good Game Boy Color ports of PlayStation 1 games. Kicking off this list, we have Tomb Raider for the Game Boy Color. There are two Tomb Raider games on the system, one being The Curse of the Sword, and this one, which is the original. They definitely took a lot of sources from the game on the PS1, and it's a side-scroller here, and I'm going to be honest with you, I had trouble figuring out how to play this game at first, but after about a couple minutes figuring out the controls, it's actually pretty well done here. If you like cinematic platformers like Flashback or Blackthorn or something like that, you're going to love this game because it actually controls very well, and visually it is stunning. This might be one of the best Game Boy Color game, pixel-wise and graphics, I've seen on the system. You go through just like you normally would, you go through like tombs and such, and you go adventuring and you find stuff and you solve puzzles, and there's combat here. It all feels pretty well done here, and it provides a decent challenge as well. This game's pretty affordable though, you can get it for like $10 or so, easily loose, so if you want a good cinematic platformer on the Game Boy Color, I'd check out Tomb Raider, it's definitely got promise. We've got Mr. Driller here for the Game Boy Color, and this was a very popular puzzle game that was on the PS1 and the Dreamcast. Looking at this game, it looks exactly like those games, just in 8-bit form, and it plays perfectly like the same game too. The gameplay is exactly like the original. You just dig down, and you'll find air capsules to keep your air up or you'll die, and you get to the end, you get to 2,500 feet, or 5,000 feet, or whatever mode you're playing on. This game is a perfect candidate to have as a port for the Game Boy Color, because puzzle games just do very well when they're on the go, because you can play for 10 minutes, 15 minutes, whatever, 5 minutes, and then you're done. Namco definitely did a good job with this port, so if you want a good puzzle game for the system, definitely check out Mr. Driller. Alone in the Dark, The New Nightmare. This was definitely a late release on the PlayStation 1 and as well as Dreamcast, but it got a handheld port and it's pretty close to the original. This is an 8-bit game, and it's pretty impressive, honestly, that this game can do this on this hardware. Yeah, it doesn't look that great. I mean, the still images are very, very blurry to see, and it's just kind of an odd attempt at how they do this, but honestly, it's an honest attempt, and I commend them for it. Even though the game is not all that awesome, it's still playable and a decent game nonetheless. You can actually play this on the Nintendo Switch Online, so if you've got a membership, you can play this game easily. I'm definitely going to have to say the console version's better than this version, but I mean, as any other game, really. I definitely wanted to put the game on this list, though, because it's a pretty impressive game, honestly, and it's not too bad, so check this one out if you're curious. The Grinch on Game Boy Color is a lot different than its console counterparts, which are very average games by the way, but the handheld version here is not too bad. Konami made this one, and I've actually reviewed this game on this channel around Christmas time. Check that video sometime. The same team that worked on Metal Gear Solid Ghost Babel made this game, and it came out in late 2000, and it's a stealth game all the way. And you walk around, you collect presents, and you have to get all the presents in the area to go to the next stage. You hide from the Whovillians, and don't be seen because they'll touch you, and their kindness kills the old Grinch. This is a really well done game here. It plays really well, and it's got good challenge. This game gets really hard, by the way, the further you get to it. There's about 7 worlds in this game, and good God, it gets tough. Not too expensive of a game either, so if you're looking for a Christmas-themed game on the go, or something by Konami, definitely give this game a look. Rayman 2, The Great Escape, got a Game Boy Color port. No surprise, it was on everything, but the Game Boy Color port is more like the first game, where it's a side-scroller. It comes to no surprise, but it's definitely a good side-scroller here. It plays very well, it's got good animation, it's got good level design, and you have your helicopter hair power up from the start, which is a really nice touch. The first game is also on here too, so if you play that one, you definitely can't go wrong with either game here on the Game Boy Color. Rayman 2 though is definitely a good choice though, because it improves a little bit on the first game, adds some more variety, and it's just a fun, faithful version of the console version. If you're looking for a good side-scroller on the Game Boy Color, you can't go wrong with some Rayman 2. Blade for the Game Boy Color. I've never played the PS1 version, but I heard that this version here for the Game Boy Color was worth looking at. It's got some unique things here. It starts off with one level where it's kind of like a rail shooting section. The graphics of this game look very good for a Game Boy Color game. It all pops out very well, you can tell what everything is, and the gameplay itself is not too bad. As the game plays, it's a beat 'em up really, it's just side-scrolling, but it's just one lane, and it's very simple with what you do. You just punch, you can duck and punch and kick, and you do some other moves. You can also block with the B button, and you'll need to against boss fights because this game gets pretty dang challenging. Kinda cool to have a game like this on this list because there's not too many on the system that are like this, where they're beat 'em up style. I definitely think Blade is worth a check out here on the Game Boy Color because it looks great, it plays perfectly fine, and definitely would recommend this to retro gamers looking for something new. Anybody who watches this channel knows that I love the Driver games. I talked about both the games on the PS1 a few months ago, and check that video out if you're interested, but I was itching to find out about Driver for the Game Boy Color, and honestly, this is literally the same game, but on the go. They did a good job with this one. It's just like the game on the PlayStation, but in top-down perspective. The challenge is definitely still there. Oh, it's still there for sure, trust me. And it just looks like a great game too, visually, and it plays perfectly fine. It's very simple. I mean, you just drive really to the destination it tells you to, look on your map where you need to go, and that's it. But that's how the original game is. Obviously, it's just a top-down. I'm not a big fan of the Grand Theft Auto games on the Game Boy Color, but I think Driver has promise, so if you like driving games and you want an old school looking game to play on the go, get Driver. It's a good one. The Mummy. Similar to Blade, it had a PS1 version and then it got ported to the Game Boy Color. Kinda like the Grinch though, unlike its console counterpart, the handheld version was developed by Konami. When I heard about that for this game, it kinda caught my interest the moment I heard about it a long time ago. And the gameplay here is basically a puzzle platformer type of deal. It kind of reminds me of something like Castlevania in the way it looks, but it definitely doesn't play that way. It plays much like a puzzle platformer. You go around these tombs and stuff, figuring out how to get out of there and find all the items and get to the exit. You also get multiple characters. You can play as Evelyn, you can get her brother Jonathan, and you can even get Rick O'Connell. He can shoot guns. I see you, Konami. You're throwing some Castlevania 3 in there. That's cool. One thing to mention if you do want to play this game is you can get stuck in these levels if you can't figure some stuff out. You use items and stuff that you needed to before. Make sure you have your passwords handy for these levels because you might need them. This is definitely a cool game on this list though. If I had to check out one game on this list, I would say The Mummy is definitely a good candidate. Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, or Philosopher's Stone in PAL regions, obviously got ported to the Game Boy Color because it was very successful when the movie came out. The game, however, unlike the console version being an action-adventure title, this game is a turn-based RPG. Yeah, turn-based RPG Harry Potter. Yeah, before Hogwarts Legacy ever happened. It may not look like the greatest game on the surface when you play it, but it plays perfectly fine for an RPG, but what's really cool is the battles. It's turn-based combat, but they really got creative with how the gameplay was a little bit. Harry uses his wand, and you fight rats as your first enemies. Usually you fight some pathetic little creature in the beginning of the game, and then you'll eventually fight harder stuff as the game goes on. It starts off in Diagon Alley, and just like the movie, it kind of does that, and it's the part where he gets his wand from that shop while you're going around destroying stuff, and then when you go to Gringotts, you're in a dungeon, and the game's just really cool. It follows the source material very well. If you want to check out a good Harry Potter RPG that's not Hogwarts Legacy, I definitely would try this one, or even try Prisoner of Azkaban on the Game Boy Advance. That is also good. And there you have it. Those are a few games on the Game Boy Color that are ports of PS1 games that are definitely worth checking out. These aren't the best games on the system or anything, no, these are just fun games to play though, that are good adaptations of their source material. The Game Boy Color has a very fun library to explore because there's a lot of different kind of games that are very unique, owned to its system, and also good ports in general. If there's a good port that's a PS1 game, or even another console that got a port on the Game Boy Color, leave a comment down below. I'd love to hear your suggestions, as well as maybe even make another video like this in the future. Thanks for stopping by to watch this video. Y'all take it easy.